We're both in yellow today.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about my favorite word, which is judgment. What is judgment? Let's talk. Let's just set. Okay, let me just set the scene. So for me, in everything we do in life, there's an element of judgment in terms of we judge ourselves. I mean, it's a big word, and I know there are other words we can probably use instead of judgment, but we judge ourselves, we judge others, we compare ourselves, we sometimes judge then blame ourselves. So it's a big word, judgment. We can start off with that. So maybe what would be quite interesting is to understand from a yoga point of view, what was your initial feelings around yoga and self-judgment and comparison and whatever people think
Oh,
about, let's start off with
man.
yoga as a topic of judgment.
Okay. Let's see. Well, first of all, I the first yoga I ever did was like a little VHS tape, right?
Yeah,
I think we've talked about this before, and I just
yeah,
noticed that everyone was really skinny in really nice clothes, and they all seemed like really calm and perfect, right?
yeah, yeah.
And so then I thought, well, I want to be like that. So I found the most intense type of yoga that existed in my area, which was Bikram yoga. So like hot Bikram yoga. And at 14, I joined a studio and was the youngest person there. Everyone else was an adult. It was kind of dark and it's super
Yeah,
hot and
yeah.
there's mirrors everywhere. And I was constantly judging myself, constantly comparing myself to the
Oh,
other
there
women.
were mirrors there.
Oh, all around.
Oh,
Constantly
wow.
judging myself, constantly looking myself in the mirror and looking at the other women and feeling like
Yeah,
shit, basically. And also,
yeah,
it was from even a higher perspective, whilst judging myself and comparing myself, I also felt elite because to me,
yeah,
yoga was an elite thing. Like only,
yeah,
you know, rich bitch could be going to yoga.
yeah, 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 yeah,
And
yeah,
it was totally divorced from any philosophy, any heart,
yeah.
any other limb. And I don't even know if it could truly be the way I was approaching it considered yoga at all. I'm not sure.
When you think about it, right? I use the word judgment, but it could be anything comparison, right? When you really think about it, when we say the word, like let's take yoga, I'm not flexible enough. I'm not
Mm.
skinny enough. I'm not strong enough. My arms are not straight enough. I can't bend forward. All these things compared to the person next to me,
Yeah,
who can do all these things. What we're saying is that we're not good enough. And when
exactly.
you think about all the things out there, other competitive sports or other things that people do, yoga should be the one thing where you don't judge yourself and where you don't compare yourself to others and where your self-worth is absolutely there, because fundamentally, isn't that what yoga is meant to be about? But it's seeped in, these little tentacles, judgment into
We
yoga.
could go so deep into this on so many levels. I mean, first of all, yoga means union. So, union with yourself, the universe,
Yeah,
unity, not duality, not
yeah,
non-dualism. So if you're judging and
yeah,
comparing to another person or even to yourself on a different day, you're creating duality in the yoga space. And it's
yeah,
like completely different from what it's supposed to be about,
yeah,
obviously. But then also it's not just the practitioner's responsibility, it's also how the facilitator or the teacher leads, right? Like so
yeah,
often we hear the fullest expression of the pose. The fullest, get into if you want to do the fullest expression, this is what it
yeah.
looks like, you know? But if you need a block or like
Yeah,
if you
if you
need this,
must.
the way we language it is so hierarchical and
Yeah,
like value.
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, like you, I'm going to do my utmost to try and make yoga more accessible. But let's move on a little bit to kind of just like judgment in general and social media. And I think as children, growing up, some parents want their children to, I don't know, look a certain way or get the degree or achieve certain things because they're comparing. And then you've got social media, you've got to look a certain way, you've got to feel a certain way, you've got to cook a certain way, your boyfriend's got to be a certain way. I mean, it's just effing ridiculous, And then you've got in things like HIV, oh, we're going to judge because of that. So you're this and you're that. So I think that as a society, why do we judge so much, Emily?
Honestly, I think naturally, at least that's what, neuroscience, cognitive science tells us, is that humans naturally want to categorize things so that they can
Yeah.
make sense of the world and all the input that's coming in to their brain.
Mm,
But more and more, I've been hearing whisperings, and just like with other yoga teachers that I'm following, I'm hearing that, things are kind of shifting a little bit. And also in like the linguistic space, we're starting to move away from this like dual thinking
yeah.
to a less polarized way of looking at things, where things can be two things at once. Things can
Yeah.
be everything at once.
Yeah.
There's not always order and sense to everything. And
Yeah.
so I think this idea that humans, oh, it's just natural, we categorize everything. Well, yes, to an extent that's true, but we also don't categorize everything. We're also able to hold opposing things in our mind at once. And so I think more and more, as people start to research this more and also accept that we have both sides of the brain, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
maybe it will be less okay to just be judgy all the time. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think there's a fine line between competitiveness, judgment, and self-worth. And I think all of those things are intertwined in some way. And I think that I actually think, when I first started doing yoga, I thought, what's all this malarkey about? What is all this? You get to find yourself and you get to learn stuff, but I kind of understand it now because I think with yoga, you can you can self-judge. You can put a lot of pressure on yourself about not being able to touch your toes or not being able to do certain things, and it's unnecessary. And I think what it brings in is the practice of presence and patience. And I think that we see a lot of discussion on social media and other places about meditation and being Zen, and they throw
Yeah.
these words around so kind of, you know, willy-nilly. But really it's about, I think, like with let's go back to judgment. The only example that I could use, I guess, for myself in particular is around the stigma of HIV. And there was a lot of I judged myself. My self-worth was down. I compared myself maybe to others. I didn't feel that I was good enough. I didn't think that, I was, I didn't feel whole compared to
Mhm.
other women that didn't have an STID, and they were whole. They were
Well,
full
I just want
woman.
to say that probably all of them, most of them eventually had an STI or an STD at some point in their life, right? Like,
Well, but at that time, that was how it felt.
yeah,
But it's taken me a long time to understand that, it starts within, and it starts with being still to a certain extent. And when I say be still, uh, just kind of be still to feel and see what is going on with yourself and not worrying so much about others. And that is a thing in itself, isn't it? Just kind of retreating for a little while.
yeah. I mean, going inward, it's definitely a part of the yoga journey, but also that svadhyaya, that self-reflection, that self-inquiry. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like a key part of yoga, the whole
So
thing, yoga, right? For me, I think self-judgment, I mean, it's so many things in my life, but I think it, even as young, just feeling my body was different from other people's, or I
Yeah.
was different from other people, but also then because of my schooling, since it was
Yeah.
so cloistered and different, I felt weird going out into the normal world. Like I was antisocial because I had been to
Yeah.
like this really strict religious school and homeschooled for some time.
Yeah.
I felt so alien and like
Yeah.
I didn't know social norms. And then when I had my child out of wedlock, I felt, oh,
Oh
I'm the
wow,
single
you
mother
naughty
who's,
girl.
not married. And I felt so incapable of making friends with other moms that were married
Yeah.
because I felt like they thought I was a pariah. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if that was true or not, but I didn't have any mom friends. Oh, there's a flag.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any mom friends until my daughter was like 7.
But think about that pressure, that pressure of not doing the right thing, the judgment that comes from particular organizations, religious organizations, that will say you're going to effing go to hell,
Yeah.
if you
Or
behave in a
you're trying
certain
to
way.
steal everyone's husband because you're not married
Yeah.
and you have a child.
Yeah.
That's what I
Yeah.
felt like, honestly. And I didn't make any friends that were moms until I had a steady partner.
There's so much pressure, isn't there? I think
Yeah.
for women in particular, like you're a floozy, as I would say in the UK, if you're, if you're around other people's husbands and stuff. And but imagine the pressure that women have to get married, to have children, to be in a relationship, just because it's a social norm of being in this box that puts you in a certain place.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll be judged as the loose woman or
I've seen so many like posts lately. I don't remember who wrote the book, but I don't even remember the title, but some kind of manifesto about not having children as a conscious choice as a woman, and
yeah,
basically all that that does positively for society. And I've seen
yeah,
people quoting it, talking about, I don't remember the book right now, but I'm really intrigued by that because I'd love to see all the research that she's compiled to show that, like,
yeah.
actually, if you don't have a child, you aren't a total waste, because that's what, certainly the
So
messages I got
what
when I was growing up.
what's that like having a baby and you was not married? Like, how was that at
Well,
that time?
with a Catholic family, I mean, it was interesting. They were, my family was really accepting, actually.
Yeah,
Um, they didn't reject me. Obviously,
yeah, yeah,
Catholics
yeah.
love kids, so you're gonna have when they're really happy. Okay, it's still a
Yeah,
kid. But I felt um embarrassed, and
yeah,
also being ever, if I was in church with them, I'm sure
yeah,
people were judging me, and there was pressure to get married, from some members of the family, like,
yeah,
you guys need to get married. And of course we had to get the baby baptized, or else she would be like
yeah, yeah.
burning
Yeah.
in the fires.
Of hell, of course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, so that there was pressure around that, and also just around making decisions and parenting, because even though I was 26, I felt everyone treated me like I was so young, but 26
yeah,
isn't that young to have a baby.
no. And I think as well, like that judgment that I felt within like religious communities about, HIV, and you must have done something wrong, or it's like some sort of punishment of some sort.
Yeah.
And and it's a shame. I mean, what would life be like if people were free to be who they want to be? And there was no such thing as perfect, because what is perfect? I think we're all perfect,
Yeah.
and we have the resources that we have at any particular time. I think it holds people back,
And it's
self-judgment
sad
and
too,
judgment.
because, this is our life. There's no actual proof
Yeah,
that there's any more life after this. I hope there is, but there's no
yeah,
proof.
yeah.
So we might as well be rocking this one out. That's the way I feel.
Well, unless you read Michael Newton's book on life after death, well, there is. But so
I haven't read that.
good book, very good book. So because life's not easy, is it, Em? It's not. Sometimes it is, and sometimes things go the way that you want it to go. But it's not fine. How do we find that balance? We want all these wonderful experiences to happen all the time, and we don't want any of this negative stuff. And I guess we have to try and find that balance and just get through life. yoga's
Yeah.
helped me through that journey.
I mean, I think the negative is, of course, no one wants to have any negative in their life, but I've always, even from a young age, thought that if you don't have any negative, then you don't really even know what positive is, right? Like
Yeah,
if
yeah,
everything's positive all the time, then that's just
yeah,
the thing. There's
yeah,
nothing to compare it to. Now, I'm not saying like throw yourself into negative experiences so you can have
yeah.
like a great one, but I don't know. But in terms
So
of judgment and
yeah,
HIV, do you feel like it's different now that you either are judged less or you just don't care?
I don't care. And the thing is, I've come from a Catholic upbringing, and I was brought up to care.
Mm,
I was brought
yeah,
up to care, and it wasn't just a Catholic upbringing. It was a cultural upbringing about what will people say.
yeah.
What will people say about, you know.
And you even
So
have a partner now and you're together and
yeah,
you just are totally open. You told him and it's nothing. Like,
absolutely good. But you see, all that judgment, it was self-judgment.
yeah.
And you know what the self-judgment come from as well? Being so scared about what people would think. So I self-judge myself as, oh my God, I dissociated. Yeah. But then also being so fearful about what people would think, i.e., how people would judge me. What would they think? What are
Can
they
I
going to
ask
say
you,
about
who
me?
was the first person you told? Like, who was the first person you felt wouldn't judge you?
Um, well, that's an interesting story. The first person I told was my sister. And yeah, I mean, my sister, we are very different in terms of our just who we are, but she didn't judge me,
Yeah.
I felt. And then later on down the years, I told a friend, and I felt that they wouldn't judge me, and they didn't. Yeah, so that was quite nice actually. But yeah, it's just, like, why do we care so much, Emily, about what people think of us and how we're living our life and how we look and how we breathe and how we cook
Well,
and
I
how,
think it's a natural response to keep ourselves safe. I mean, we need community and we need
yes,
society to survive. And when we're young, we
yes,
need our parents to
yeah,
survive. And if you grow up feeling shame a lot, I think because
yeah,
you need that shame to keep you in the fold so that you can get food and money and shelter, then
yeah,
when you grow up, I think you've set yourself up to be more likely to feel that constant sense of survival based shame, right? And that
yeah,
is self-judgment. That's the inner critic trying to keep
yeah,
you in the fold, to keep your
yeah,
job, to keep your
to
friend.
keep you in the fold. I
Yeah.
like that.
So I think
Yeah,
that's why. And I think people that actually maybe had attuned and attached and loving, um, you know, childhoods, and
yeah,
not saying that it's your parents' fault. It can be any factor that
yeah,
leads, it could be school, it could be bullying.
yeah,
I think that maybe people that don't have that probably might give a lot less of a, fuck
yeah, yeah, yeah.
about this. I don't know.
But I think, what, one of the biggest things I've learned, Emily, right, is to take responsibility for my feelings. So when I decided to become out and outspoken about HIV and stigma and my status, if I monitor how I feel, what I think, what emotions are coming up for me, and I do so as gently as I can, because historically emotions would come up and I think, no, no, don't get angry, no, no, or anger would come up, oh no, so things that would come up, I would self-judge and self-regulate and feel so much shame about not being good enough, being
Mm,
not a very nice person. But now it's different. Now I allow those things to come up and I hold them quite gently, and I do my absolute best not to blame other people for how I feel. And the
yeah.
biggest learning is with my partner. You know, when we have like arguments, I think it was yesterday we had a heated discussion, and it was, well, how can we take responsibility for our own feelings instead of saying, you made me feel, you done this and you done that. Actually, what's going on there for me? They might have triggered something, but what's actually going on for me? So, you know, if somebody says something negative about HIV, I think I will probably feel something's going on for them. If I get triggered, well, it might be my shame that comes up. But I feel in quite a strong place at the moment. So I think I'd probably think, well, there's something going on with them. And I wouldn't judge them for it. I would just
Yeah.
say, well, there's stuff going on, and that's okay.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
important, like you're saying, to really conceptualize like the locus of control inside, right?
Ooh,
So
ooh,
even
using a
though,
long word, you just said the locus of control. That sounds so lovely.
yeah, but I think it's exactly what you're saying. You don't put it on the outside. You are responsible for
Uh,
your life. And I think that can be so empowering, especially when things have happened maybe where we didn't have power or it was taken away
yeah,
from us, to reclaim those moments when it isn't, and to
yeah.
recognize that, I think is really nice too.
And what's really important, and I know that you're going to agree with me on this, although, you know, we've done a lot of learning and we've gone through like yoga and all these kind of, you know, like, you know, self-empowerment, and it's it's a journey, it's a struggle. There's
It's an
so much more to learn.
everyday thing. Everyday thing. When you, I mean, even if you just think of it from like your brain, I always think of,
Mm,
scientists are saying your neural pathways, when you get them trodden down, it's an easy groove to slip in,
yeah.
like it's still there, even if you make new paths, the old road is still there. And so if you get the record player gets pushed in that groove, the song might play until someone hits it.
It's nice. Have you cut your hair again?
Yes, I cut it. I did. I cut it yesterday. Thank you for
Yes,
noticing.
oh, it looks really nice. I
Let me
love
tell
the
you that my
layers.
partner never notices when I cut my hair.
Oh,
And I used to
boom.
take it personally, but now I'm just like, he loves me in all my hairs. Maybe he doesn't.
It looks really nice. I love it.
Thank you.
Okay. So on that note, should we wind up and have a little nap afterwards?
Yes, I think it's time. Yeah.
Love you.
Big love.
Bye.
Bye.